Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for tuning in to Middlebury's first Wednesday webinar of the summer. The theme of this webinar is Middlebury International. My name is Asa Waterworth and I'm one of the admissions counselors here at Middlebury. I'm also an alum of the Middlebury School Abroad in Yaoundé, Cameroon, which is why I'm really excited to be moderating this panel today and talking to you and sharing with you the many ways in which you can internationalize your experience at Middlebury, both on campus and abroad. So we have a lot of really wonderful panelists joining us today. So I will turn it over to our first panelist, Tim Page. But before we start, I just want to point out that you can put your questions in the Q&A box at any time throughout this presentation. We're going to start with about a 15-minute introduction and introduce all of these wonderful folks, and then we'll move into the Q&A portion, but type away your questions at any point. And thanks again for joining us. So Tim, do you want to take it away?
Sure, thanks very much. So I'm Tim Page. I'm the Associate Dean of the Middlebury Language Schools. And I'll let Casey and Isabella tell you about their experiences, but I'd like to just introduce the concept of the language schools to you first. So the language schools really is a truly unique institution in the United States. In essence, within the Middlebury College institution, we've created a pop-up language university that was started in 1915. And since then, we've been teaching 12 languages now, from the absolute beginner level all the way, in many cases, to doctoral level. And it all starts with the language pledge, which you may have already heard about. And that's a commitment on your part to stay in the language for the entire 2 months that you're with us. And it's also a commitment on our part to make sure you can stay in the language for the entire 2 months. And the great thing about our program is that you're not alone. Everyone in your school, all the students, faculty, and staff take the same pledge, and together you create a safe and productive place to learn your language and culture. And how does a language pledge work? Well, we start with 2 beautiful campuses in Vermont, the Middlebury campus, as well as the Bennington College campus. And that allows you to focus only on language and culture. And then we bring in 300 of the best instructors from around the world, many of whom bring their families with them. And finally, we add 1,500 of the most dedicated language students we can find. They are from 18 to 88. They are from all walks of life. The average age on campus is actually 26. They are Middlebury students. They are undergraduates from hundreds of different other students, other universities from around the United States and the world. And they're professionals. They could be journalists, lawyers, US government professionals, or teachers. And then we put all of you together in one location. You all live in the same dorms. You eat your meals together. Students spend 4 hours of class, 4 hours of time in the morning in class. And then the rest of the time, you're immersed in language and culture by doing what we call co-curricular activities. But it's cooking, music, parties, dance events, etc. And what's the results of this 24/7 focused effort? Number one, and I would encourage you to take a look at our Facebook page and also to talk to Casey and Isabella about it. You'll create and you'll be part of this incredible community. A community that will probably, the experience will probably last you the rest of your life. Number two, you'll have the satisfaction of completing a really rigorous academic program. And last but not least, you also have tremendous proficiency gains in your language and culture. The language school is open to everybody, as I said before, including Middlebury students, and we strongly encourage you to take part in language schools if you are a Middlebury student. Our application opens up on November 2nd. As a Middlebury student, you'll be given special consideration for your application, and you also can be given special consideration for need-based financial aid. And that's it. That's in a nutshell. And I'll let you ask questions to Casey and Isabel, and I'm happy to take them as well.
Thanks, Tim. Susan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Parsons. I'm class of 2001, and I am the Assistant Director in International Programs. We are basically the study abroad office at Middlebury College. And I personally advise for our programs in France, Japan, and Russia. We have many other advisors in the office who advise for our different programs. We offer programs in 16 different countries in 37 different locations. And about over half the student body studies abroad at some point before they graduate. That is typically during the junior year. But it doesn't have to be only in your junior year. And about half of the Middlebury students who study abroad attend a Middlebury school abroad, and the other half attend what we call an externally sponsored program, which would just be in a location where we don't operate a program ourselves. Half of the students who do attend the Middlebury schools abroad are Middlebury undergraduates, and the other half are students from other institutions. So while we, of course, sincerely hope that you choose Middlebury for your undergraduate experience, if for some reason that doesn't work out, you could always still apply to study at one of the Middlebury schools abroad. Oftentimes, students will attend the language school ahead of their study abroad experience to bolster their language skills. We have different prerequisites for programs depending on whether there is a non-English language component or not. We do operate a program in Delhi, India, and in Oxford, England, for those who do not pursue another language. Why would students study abroad? I know you're sort of thinking about where to study for undergraduate opportunities. And so, you're thinking about where you want to be for those 4 years, and why start thinking about leaving that location to go someplace else. Studying abroad is a great opportunity to improve your language skills, to immerse yourself in a local culture, and to meet local people. And you gain an incredible amount of independence through that opportunity, and you gain skills that are really transferable to the workplace after you've graduated. I mean, we have found employers are very interested in the transferable skills that students acquire during their time abroad. There's no sort of cookie cutter program structure for us, so it really depends on where you would be studying, but we have 3 different models as far as our academic structure goes. There are some locations where students are just enrolling in Middlebury arranged courses that are taught just to our program participants by local faculty. There's another model where students are directly enrolling at the local university. There's a structure where it's a combination of the two. Some center courses with Middlebury participants, some direct enrollment courses at the local university. In all of our sites, we also offer the opportunity to complete an internship for academic credit. That's, something that is a very rewarding experience where you get to see a different side of the culture aside from the academic aspect. And it's also happens to be a great resume builder. Just as the academic structure varies from site to site, the housing options vary by site. In some of our locations, students are living with a host family. In some locations, they are in an apartment with local students. In some locations, they have the option for a university dorm. And in some places, there's an independent residence hall. We do ask that students not live with other native English speakers. We try not to have a little American university student bubble abroad. We try to have students living with locals as much as possible. And then all of those credits transfer back to Middlebury as part of your transcript. And students can satisfy major, minor distribution requirements from their time abroad so that they're not behind as they head towards their graduation. And we see students across all majors. So this is not something that's just an opportunity for students majoring in a language or majoring in international politics and economics or international global studies. It's, molecular biology, comparative literature, history, everything. So I hope that our office will see you come by at some point.
Thanks, Susan. Charlotte, do you want to introduce yourself? It looks like you're muted, Charlotte.
Sorry. That just gave me a chance to warm up. Welcome, everyone. I am Charlotte Tate, the Associate Director at the Rowton Center for Global Affairs on the Middlebury College campus. And I, in fact, attended the German language school quite a while ago. So what you've just been hearing about is very relevant and important. But in my role at the Rowton Center for Global Affairs, we are a co-curricular center that offers opportunities on the college campus for international and global immersion. And I'd like to share with you a video that the Rowton Center produced with guidance from the Rowton Student Advisory Board to highlight some of those opportunities. So Isabella will now share that with you.
Isabella, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me know if you have trouble hearing it because I have headphones on and then I can take them off if you do. I have to take them off? Yeah. All right, let's go.
Thank you.
No problem.
The Rowton Center was established in 2002 to provide co-curricular programming and research opportunities for students and faculty that focus on international and global issues.
The Rowton Center sponsors or co-sponsors lectures and symposia throughout the school year. They explore topics that can be discussed from multiple disciplinary perspectives in ways that both contribute to our international and global studies curriculum and connect our campus to the CV Star Middlebury schools abroad.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be a research intern at the Rowton Center because I've been able to work with two very different professors so far in different fields.
I think the research internship has broadened my horizons into academic areas that I might not otherwise experience.
Without that research support, faculty projects would have far less of the breadth and depth that they are able to have now.
I've assisted in creating a food studies minor on campus by conducting research, and now 2 or 3 years later, we finally are offering that minor.
The role of the RSAB is to increase student involvement, create programming that we think students will be interested in, that will bring them in and increase awareness of global issues.
Being an RSAB is a really good opportunity for students because it introduces you to other students who are interested in global affairs as well, but who also are studying perhaps different disciplines than you. I think it is really good at teaching you team building tools that you can kind of use for the rest of your life, how to work in a group and create a really meaningful product, whether that's a global reader or academic journal or assisting in creating a student conference.
We planned a conference this year that was called Bodies at Borders, Lived Effects of Settler Colonialism.
It's a very global issue. We had the idea that this was an important issue and we were like, how do we do something about this? It kind of gave us the opportunity to make the type of conference we would want to attend.
We learned a lot about just managing people and planning an event, ordering catering and planning a space and kind of how we wanted the atmosphere to feel.
One of the things I learned is that it's easy to get bogged down in all of the details and stress that comes with planning. And then after the conference, I realized people left feeling so affected.
So every month we have a on topics luncheon. These are opportunities that are only for students. It brings a professor in to spend a little bit of time talking about a subject and then really creating a discussion between students and the professor in sort of more intimate environment. It's different from other lectures on campus because it's only for students, and so this allows a smaller environment to flesh out different topics, and it's always over some delicious food as well.
I went to India for 3 months.
Amman, Jordan. I will be traveling to Chengdu, which is a city in the western part of China, for my comparative literature thesis, which is focusing on depictions of HIV in the Jordanian and the Chilean imaginaries.
For my thesis on declassifying India as a competitive authoritarianism as opposed to the democracy that it is classified as now.
And I'll be talking with experts there about Chengdu's urban housing policies and how it affects the urban poor there. My abilities to conduct these semi-structured interviews definitely improved through practice, finding the right questions to ask and finding ways to ask them that are culturally sensitive and culturally thought about.
It's really cool as an undergraduate to have the opportunity to do this kind of research.
Grassroots organization and campaign management is probably what I'm planning on doing once I graduate.
I'm hoping to return there and just be a useful and a thoughtful, actor.
So we see our role as being an epicenter of international and global programming and research.
Global, international, and interdisciplinary by design.
Thanks. Casey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Asa. So I'm more or less, I think, the alumni panelist on the board here. Asa asked me to speak a little bit about my time at Middlebury, as well as the Middlebury Institute, which is the California-based institution that is now part of Middlebury, and in particular, sort of how my experience with the international components of my education at Middlebury and the Monterey Institute have sort of helped start me on what's been, for me, an exciting early kind of career in international politics. At Middlebury, I was a Russian major. I did the summer language school right before going abroad for a year to Irkutsk, Russia, which is one of the 3 study abroad programs that Middlebury had at the time and still probably does, in the middle of Siberia, which was an intense and very cold year, even colder than a Vermont winter. For myself as an Arizonan, it was an awesome opportunity to really to gain fluency in my chosen language of study, both through the summer school and the school abroad. In Middlebury, and I sang a cappella and was a member of the Mountain Club, and actually also worked at the admissions office for a brief time. But it wasn't until my senior year that I realized that I had also wanted to major in political science, or to minor rather. So I picked up the minor and wrote a thesis on the kind of authoritarian angles of local government in Russia, which was kind of a research idea I had as a result of my time abroad. And it was at that time that the Middlebury started offering accelerated degree programs with the Monterey Institute. So the Monterey Institute, has been around since the 1950s as a top program for translation and interpretation training, as well as for international policy focused programs. I chose to do a non-proliferation and terrorism studies degree, master's degree, which is focused on weapons of mass destruction and arms control, which was an intensely kind of an intense way of taking a lot of the kind of the basic liberal arts education I got at Middlebury and apply it to a much more applied setting. Practice of international policymaking in kind of the counter WMD sphere, not just given my academic experiences at the Monterey Institute, but also in a lot of applied professional settings. Getting to present research in front of states parties at the United Nations was a part of my experience at Monterey. Far beyond just the typical model UN programs that many places have. Actually got to go to New York and present research. I finished on my time at Monterey with an internship in Vienna, Austria for 6 months, working at the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, and then getting to go off to one of the US Department of Energy's national laboratories to continue doing related research on arms control verification after that. I then, again, through Monterey and kind of in the broader Middlebury set of institutions, was then able to find a fellowship coordinated through the Monterey Institute to work at the Pentagon, at the U.S. Department of Defense, for what ended up being the next 4 years, working for 2 years on counter WMD issues across the Asia Pacific and former Soviet Union areas. And then for the second 2 years as a policy advisor in the Office of the Secretary of Defense on Jordan, on defense policy related to Jordan and the counter ISIL campaign. And now have gone back to academia, and I'm working on a PhD at the University of Pennsylvania in political science, since the minor in political science at Middlebury isn't quite enough to get you to the level to be able to teach at the collegiate level. But I think, you know, the bottom line, I think, was that the kind of the foundational liberal arts education I had at Middlebury, given all of the additional opportunities that the Middlebury Institute at Monterey is able to offer, was really kind of what set me and basically all of my colleagues up at the Monterey Institute for careers in this field. So I'm happy to answer questions when we're done, but hopefully that's just a good introduction.
I wonder if Ace is frozen.
I wondered that too. Maybe we'll hand it over to Benji next.
Yes, exactly. Benji, you want to take the floor?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Benji Renton. I am a rising senior at Middlebury College, and I'm studying East Asian Studies, which is a track in the International and Global Studies program. So throughout my time at Middlebury, in addition to my language of choice, which is Chinese, I've studied Chinese throughout the 3 years that I've been at Middlebury so far. I studied at the Middlebury School of the Environment, and I'm going to just share my screen for a second. And I just wanted to share a couple of kind of pictures to talk briefly about the experiences that I had with Middlebury abroad, and more specifically in China. So in the summer of 2018, which was after my first year at Middlebury, I studied at the Middlebury School of the Environment, which is in Yunnan province in southwestern China. And it's a program that's open to students of all majors, students from all colleges and universities. So we had about half Middlebury students and half non-Middlebury students, kind of like the schools which Susan talked about. Each student go this kind of personal research project, and the pictures on some pictures there show some of my personal journey in that research project. I looked at migration, both in terms of rural to urban and urban to rural. And so aside from your personal research project, we all took 2 other courses in various aspects of environmental research and sustainability. So it's a really kind of cohort-based program. You're learning together as a group and being able to explore China, which I thought was really cool. And I thought it was interesting because I came at it solely from basically an East Asian Studies background, which is the international studies background, and people also came at it from a really heavy environmental studies or environmental science-based background. And I think those 2 kind of areas of study really merge very, very well together in a program like this. So that was a great way to spend a summer, and I'd be happy to answer any questions in the Q&A about that. My second kind of abroad experience was this past January, where I studied with Middlebury as well in Beijing. This experience was supposed to continue throughout the spring, but due to the pandemic, we had to kind of switch plans a little bit. So I want to talk briefly about my experience during our J term, which is our term in January, which was essentially a language intensive component, sort of similar a little bit to the language schools in terms of it's a 4-week, a short language study before I was scheduled to do kind of a fuller, more program that's less on language and more on culture and content and stuff like that. So all of my courses were in Chinese. We all were able to learn Chinese together. We were able to eat. The picture on the bottom left you can see is a photo of the cafeteria at Capital Normal University. So you're living with a local student. There's a local student there who is your roommate, and you get to eat and kind of enjoy all the perks to be a student at a local Chinese university, which was really cool. The photo on the top left is a photo of a Mongolian ethnic music performance that we were able to take a couple of my classmates to, which was really, really great to be able to get that exposure to the culture. And then the photo on the right, which you can see, was when we did a little trip to the market, and some of us, including myself, got to be on a little Chinese television segment about foreigners visiting the market. So I think, and Isabella can speak to her broad experiences as well, I think Middlebury really provides a lot of different experiences for you to be able to get into the culture, and knowing the language as a key to unlocking all those possibilities. So yeah, I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to Isabella.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. My slideshow is not quite as visually appealing as Benji's, but I'll talk a little bit, not necessarily all about myself, fear not. Oh, dang it, I hit share instead of present. But I will talk about my experience as an intern at the Rowton Center for Global Affairs, my experience with language school, and also about my experience abroad. So I found these two photos. The one on the right is me like the first semester after I had just gotten hired at the Rowton Center, and it was Parents' Weekend, and so my parents dropped by and I was like so excited about my new job, and so that's what that photo is. And then on the left is a photo of me this past spring introducing a speaker for the Rowton Center's annual International and Interdisciplinary Conference, where we bring scholars from all over the country and sometimes from outside of the country to come speak about a certain topic. Also, I'm a super senior Feb, so going into my last semester, class of 2020.5, and I'm a political science major with an Arabic minor. So I'm not going to talk too much about this because you just saw that incredible video that the fellow of the Rowton Center put together this past semester, but the internship is really an incredible, unique experience at Middlebury that I don't think that many people take advantage of because they don't know about it. But it's a great opportunity to work really, really closely with a professor in a discipline that maybe you are interested in, maybe you haven't ever thought you would work in. I hadn't had any interest in food studies before coming to Middlebury, but I was paired up with a food studies professor. And that interest also led me to another abroad experience that I didn't put in the slideshow, but this past January for J-term, I was in Peru for 3 weeks for a program working with the Andean Alliance for Sustainable Development, working with Peruvian female farmers, so conducting interviews, and my research experience at the Rowton Center was also super helpful for that. And being an intern for the Rowton Center also makes you a member of the Student Advisory Board. So to work along with the other interns, here are some fall interns pictured with me, to plan campus events. So that can be like an international trivia night or the hot topics events where we talk about what's in the news and get a professor to discuss that further. So I did Arabic language schools in 2018, and here's a photo of myself with two good friends of mine. We were studying Arabic, and this was before the Arabic language school was brought to Vermont. This was when there were a few language schools that were in California. And so I was in Oakland for the summer at Mills College for Middlebury Language School, and I believe they also had the Korean and Italian schools there. And so it was a wonderful experience, and the immersion was like pretty incredible considering that we weren't in a foreign country. And so it was an amazing experience to be able to learn so much Arabic so quickly. Personally, as a Feb, I couldn't take Arabic my first semester at Middlebury because they usually start the very initial classes in the fall. And so I really wanted to be able to take advantage of all of Middlebury's courses for Arabic. And so I decided to do the language schools so that I could advance in a year or a year's course load in just one summer. And all of those credits transfer like pretty seamlessly, completely seamlessly. So if you want to take 3 classes later on, it's really easy to do that if you have these language school credits, and you can take more language classes at Middlebury. So here's some more photos from language schools. Up on the top left, you can see my friend Sarah. We were in the dancing group. And so we were learning different dances from across the Middle East and North Africa. And so we just had so much fun learning from all the different teachers who came to teach us really interesting dances that I personally hadn't been exposed to before because my mom is from Peru, so I'm Latin American, but it was really, really fun. And then the top middle picture is like actually a pretty special one because this is some girls in my class and my professor and we were just working late at night on the floor of her office, just trying to understand a concept before the test the next day. And it was just so fun to be able, like none of these girls go to Middlebury. So to meet students who aren't necessarily your age, who don't go to your school, and to be able to forge a really, really close connection, obviously not just with the students, but with the professors at literally any time of day. And then bottom left is my professor, Nadia, and another Middlebury student. And we went out to eat at a Syrian restaurant at the end of the program. And then on the far right, here's this sign that I believe is in English, Arabic, and Korean. So because these signs were put around the campus so that you could be able to orient yourself if you weren't familiar with where you were going. But very clearly, it was trying to encourage people to stick to the language pledge. And I'm sure if we didn't have students who were just starting off, the English version wouldn't even be there. So here's a photo from my time at Morocco. And this is myself with 2 professors, and again, Sarah, the close friend of mine. And the program was really small and it's pretty new. So I was interested to go because I've heard that Morocco is a super gorgeous country. And I'd actually met the professor to my right, Najat, through the dance club that was at language schools. And she had seemed so amazing, and she turned out to be an incredible modern standard Arabic teacher during my time in Morocco. And I also studied Moroccan Arabic, which is very different from modern standard Arabic, but it was incredible to be able to learn a dialect as well as the modern standard Arabic, Quranic Arabic, more formal. And like I said, Morocco is an amazing country to travel throughout. And they were talking about the different kinds of study abroad programs. And this one was like Middlebury faculty teaching the students on a university campus. So we're still surrounded by Moroccan students, but all of our classes were just people within our program. And again, there was a language pledge. And it was great to live with host families. So up in the top in the middle is my host mom, Halima, and Sarah. And she became like a second mom to me during my time there. I remember I like cut my finger once accidentally during the night and I didn't want to bother her. And then when she found out, she was like really upset and I hadn't called her earlier. She'd come and she like literally tucked me in that night. So the host families really care so much about the students who they're hosting, and they're usually really, really experienced. And as you can see, I had a great time with her. And right below that is her home cooked tagine. And I was really lucky because she made the best lunches out of all of the students. And so everyone would come and like eat out of my lunchbox during the school day. And then on the left, this is an example of a type of activity that we would do, because they would always have different activities for us to do over the weekends if we weren't going on a trip. And so this is my friend Lynn. And we had to go on a scavenger hunt, and we had to go on a scavenger hunt for groceries. Wait, hold on. So we had to go on a scavenger hunt for groceries in the market. And obviously we didn't have any English translation. So we were on our phone being like, what is this word? Does that mean potato or onion? And then right after we did all this grocery shopping, we went to one of the host families' houses and made a delicious Moroccan meal. And then this photo of me hugging this boy is my brother, my twin brother, who came and visited me with my dad. And a lot of students went to a different country for spring break. Actually, everyone went to Portugal except for me. I should be more specific. But my brother and my dad came and visited me, and it was an awesome opportunity to go and visit Fez and Chefchaouen and parts of Morocco that weren't incorporated into our program, even though they did a great job of making sure that we got to see more of the country than a couple of other programs do, I think. So we were able to go to Marrakesh, and as you can see in the far right corner, that's me on a camel in the Sahara. And so that was actually, I'm not exaggerating, the best day of my life, just because it was so fun. I was with 2 of my closest friends, and I'd never seen a place like that before. And so I've had a lot of incredible travel experiences, but that particular trip was super unique and a place I'd never thought that I would be able to see. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for sharing. I'm going to share my screen now and put up some contact information. You might want to jot that down. But this will be the end of the introductions. We'll move into the Q&A. We have lots of questions. The first question maybe I'll give